It's another delicious day here in the Let's Make Food from Food Kitchen, and today we're going to go on another adventure to make some focaccia bread. Now, we're going to start it today and then bake it tomorrow, unless you're in a hurry and you need it tonight. And then I'm going to cover how to do it that way too. So we'll cover both methods. What I have here is the first 4 ingredients I need to get started, plus olive oil to go on top while it rests. Okay, so 4 cups unbleached flour. I have 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, 2 teaspoons kosher salt, and then 2 cups of warm water, not cold, not hot, warm. And you can either use warm tap water, or you can take a cup of cold water and a cup of boiling water and mix them together, but I think that's too much work. I just get our tap water gets pretty warm, so I just use it that way. Okay, I'm just gonna blend that together before I get it wet, and then I'm gonna pour in my liquid. And if you've never had this bread, you are missing out. It is fluffy, crusty on the outside, and you can do so many flavors with this. I like the garlic herbed. That's the last time I made it was garlic herbed. You can add tomatoes and olives and all kinds of stuff to the top of it. You can make a pizza out of this. You can do a focaccia sandwich. You make it in a larger pan so that it spreads out more and it's flatter, and then it makes a wonderful sandwich. So lots of things you can make with this. The last time I made it, we just had it as a side dish. It was a garlic herb. So it was like rosemary and garlic, and I think I had some thyme in there, and it was just delightful. And we took some olive oil and made it a little dip. Yep, it was so good. So good. Okay, and so what I'm doing right now is just making sure that all of the flour is no longer dry. You want it to be mixed and wet. Now this is a little bit of a sticky dough. It's not as sticky as, say, my sourdough bread or my no-knead baguette. Those are very sticky. This one's a little sticky. It's gonna be soft and supple, but still a little sticky. So I am happy with this consistency right now. I'm gonna get this off of my fingers, kind of, because I'm about to get my fingers a little messy again. All right, let me just stick this in here. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of olive oil. I'm actually gonna pour it in my hands. And you want to generously cover the top, particularly if you choose to use a towel to cover this. Okay, I'm going to use plastic wrap, so not as much moisture will escape, but you need a good coating. And why is that? Because if you don't, you're going to get this tough skin that develops on the top, and we don't want that. We don't want that at all. So a generous coating of olive oil on the top. So now I'm gonna go rinse my hands and then get out the plastic wrap to cover it, and we'll talk about which method you would like to go forward with. Okay, so now I'm just covering this tightly with my plastic wrap. Okay, and I'm just making sure it's got a nice, good seal. The moisture is gonna stay in there. Now, method 1, which is the method I am going to use, I'm going to put this in the fridge 12 to 18 hours. For me, because it's afternoon while I make this, it's going to be closer to that 18-hour mark. And for me, I think it just develops the flavor more. Almost a hint of sour. It's really beautiful. Okay. Now, if you don't have time for that, or you don't want to wait and store it in the fridge, it's okay. It'll still taste good. What you're going to do is take this, you're going to put it in a warm-ish draft-free place for 1 to 2 hours, but it does need to double in size. So make sure that it has doubled before you move on to the baking stage. So I'm going to stick this in the fridge. I'll be back tomorrow, my time, seconds for you, and we'll move on to what is next. See you soon.
Good morning or afternoon or evening, depending on what time you are doing this next step. So I have some things, 9x13 pan, parchment paper. Let's talk about that. This bread will stick to pans, especially if it's glass. it'll stick the worst to that. You really, really, really have to grease well. Parchment paper, if you're not using parchment paper, melt, especially if you have a glass pan, you're gonna need both the butter and the oil. I'm gonna use the parchment paper and I'm gonna spray it down. Yes, even with the parchment paper, I am spraying it generously before I prepare for the next thing. Okay. I just wanna make sure it's nice and covered. We need to, make sure your hands are washed. We need to take off our plastic wrap. As you can see, the top looks nice. There's not a crust on it. It looks great. I'm just gonna start gently pulling away. I think I only need one fork. Pulling away from the sides, okay? And kind of create almost a ball in the center. All right. I'm almost lifting it off the bottom so that when I flip it, it doesn't stick too bad to the bottom. Okay, and I'm just turning my bowl as I work. And this should be good. Now, what I want to do is make sure my parchment's set in the center-ish so that it can creep up on the sides as it rises and grows. And I'm just going to let it fall. Perfect. If it doesn't fall in the center, it's okay. You can pick it up and move it. So I'm going to kind of even out my paper. I'm going to gently, try not to tear, move, and it will kind of slide. Okay. Now what you're going to do is get a little oil on your hands, and you gently want to spread and push so that it basically fills the pan. But be careful not to tear it. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my hands before I do the next thing, even though I'm gonna get them dirty again with oil. I guess not dirty, just messy. Be right back. Okay, so what I wanna do now, I've got some olive oil here, and I am going to press my 3 cloves of garlic into it. And something else you can do this differently. You can roast some garlic cloves and smash it up. That's another lovely way to do it. Especially if you're gonna make it as a dip instead of putting it on as the bread cooks. That's another option. Okay, I'm just gonna stir the oil around, and then I want to brush on my garlic. The reason I do it this way is so that the garlic will spread instead of clump, because if I try to do it with my fingers, it's just gonna clump. That's been my experience. So I really want the garlic spread out on here. I'm still making a mess. And you don't have to use all of it, but you do need to be generous. Okay, and I'm making sure that I am rubbing the sides of it as well with both the garlic and the oil. Okay, so there is a lot of oil on this. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to take my fingers again and I'm going to poke a bunch of holes into my dough. And it's not all the way through, but it's pretty darn close. Okay, so this is the result. So what I want to do now that I've done that is sprinkle on my salt and my rosemary and my thyme. And how am I going to do that with oily hands? Well, I'm going to go wash them again. Okay, so I have a couple things. This is fresh rosemary from my garden, and it's blooming nicely right now, though my thyme isn't quite ready. I had to start over. Actually, I had to start over with my rosemary too, but that's a little bigger. I didn't want to stress my thyme by plucking it. So this is dried thyme, and it's actually from my garden. It's just dried. So I am just sprinkling it on, trying to get it pretty evenly. You don't have to use a whole teaspoon of each. Whatever you think your flavor palette is going to enjoy is what you should do, okay? I like it herby and garlicky. Next comes your kosher salt. You can use a nice flaky sea salt as well. That'd be lovely. And I said a teaspoon, but I'm not going to use a whole teaspoon. I'm not even using, I think there's not even a half a teaspoon here. So that is that. Next, we need to cover it again. I'm going to use the plastic wrap. You can use a towel, but please make sure that it is covered. And it's actually better if you use a damp towel. We want this to stay moist. We don't want it to dry out. We don't want our crust to develop. So I'm going to use the plastic wrap to keep that moisture in. We're going to let it sit for 3 hours. We're going to cover it up. We're going to walk away, at about 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes, go turn your oven on to 425 degrees. Make sure that rack is in the center. So I'll see you back here in 30 seconds. Okay, bye.
We are in the home stretch for our bread. I have let it cool quite a bit. And so what I want to do is just look at that. Came right off. Perfect. Would you look at that beautiful, beautiful bread. So good. It smells amazing. And check this out. Easy pan cleanup. That's my favorite. Now, this one is thin enough to where you could slice it and make a sandwich. Maybe I'm gonna do that. Not today though, not today. Today I'm good. Okay. I just wanted to give you, oh guys, check this out. This is a beautiful fluffy crumb right there. It is so soft. So all that's left is to just slice some off. Bye. I'm just kidding. It's so good. I could just sit here and eat away. But I've got other work to do. So I'm going to take my bread snack and hit the road. Thanks for joining me here today in the Let's Make Food from Food kitchen for another kitchen adventure. From my kitchen to yours, let's make food from food.
That's one board.